Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to These Go to 11. Once again, I'm Nathan Bell. Joining me, as always, Nathan Bartleball. Nathan, what's going on, man?
Hey, Nathan, how are you?
Good. We got a new format that we're trying out here. I felt like the live Lord of the Rings podcast that we did with Chip and Jared and Kyle. I feel like the video on that went really well. We got pretty good audio quality, and so I think we'll try a couple of these video ones for a little bit. We'll still put up the audio, but we're going to upload the video to the YouTube as well. And so hopefully we'll get a little bit more interaction. You and I want to be able to do more with the listeners in the future anyway. And so I figure this will be a good testing ground for the next couple weeks to get us used to that.
Yeah, I agree. Give me 1 second, Nathan. I
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
realized that my, if you don't mind starting that over, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I realized that my,
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to These Go to 11. Once again, Nathan Bell. Joining me as always, Nathan Bartleball. Nathan, what's going on, man?
not too much. How you doing, Nathan?
Doing well. You and I decided that the Lord of the Rings live Zoom that we did a couple weeks ago worked out so well, and we were able to put it up on YouTube, and people could see our faces and see the listeners who joined in with us, Chip and Jared and Kyle. And so we're going to try a couple of these audio and video ones for the next few weeks here and see how it lands for us. So, we'll start with this one and we'll see if we can get some interest on the YouTube channel there. We'll still obviously post the audio because I think a lot of people do listen to us going to and from work. And so it's just easy enough to drop in and, you know, listen to us instead of watching us. And some people might watch us and be like, ooh, I'd rather listen anyway. So
Yeah, your quarantine face
that's
is
right.
disgusting me.
That's a great quarantine face. Oh man. But yeah, no, things are good. We've got some exciting things coming up over the next couple weeks. One of the things that personally is going on, Joy and I are going to be moving. And so you and I are planning on doing some pre-recordings so that we just have those in the bag and we can be posting those. But we're really not going to be doing too many live recordings over June. We're going to go ahead and try to get Greg on next week. And so we'll have one with him in the bag. We're going to go ahead and do our Lord of the Rings one that will release later in the month. And then we can set up a time to get the live Zoom going again to get some people back on to do the discussion for the Two Towers. And then, we've got a nice little series that we're going to start and kick off today with nostalgia. Summertime, I was thinking over this past week, we just celebrated Memorial Day, and that got me thinking about, this is really the weekend that kind of starts all that stuff off: pools and barbecues, drive in theaters. And, we're in a little bit of a different scenario right now with coronavirus.
Where drive-in theaters are the only theaters,
Yeah, exactly.
amongst other things. Outdoor venues are the only venues.
That's right. And so, it's really lending itself to, it's for me anyway, to start reflecting on some of those things. And so I think this is going to be a start of,
How good we used to have it, you mean?
yeah, exactly. No use crying over spilt milk. Um, no, but I think it is good to reflect. I think it is good to bring up, the things of our past. And so this will be a starting point for that. And then a few times over the summer, we'll look to highlight some different aspects and really focus on whether it be a specific summer time that we can remember, or summer events that really bring these things to mind. And so we'll start talking and focusing on things a little bit more specifically as we
Yeah,
go
and if
through.
anyone has thoughts, we free field to excuse me, feel free to suggest them. One of the thoughts I had was that we might also that we probably would try to do beyond this show is start like a uh, flashback for specific summers. Like summer of 1989 or
Mhm.
summer of 1990.
Mhm.
Those are just ones that are popping into my head that have some kind of meaning to me. But if
Mhm.
anyone, what we would probably do then is try to take a somewhat holistic look at this at that summertime in general, events that
Mhm.
happened, any kind of major things that were that were notable then, movies, the music, the kind of
Hmm.
stuff that, kind of defined the summer. So if there's a specific summer from the past that you can think of that really meant something to you, just let us know. And that's probably, I mean, I don't think we're going to do them chronologically,
Right.
but for me, when it popped into my mind was summer of 1989. I remember there was a lot of different things that happened that were fun for me as a kid in 89. And also, I think 89 was one of those movie summers. I know a lot of people talk about the summer of 1982, but I was such a little kid in 1982 that I didn't
Right.
really end up going to the movies. Then the first movie I saw was Return of the Jedi a year later.
Hmm.
But like '89 had Batman and
Hmm.
Ghostbusters and a lot of different movies and a lot of different things going on. So that was always to me a very memorable summer. I think it might be a cool one to maybe start with. But if anybody has thoughts, hit us up on the Facebook page or send us a message and let us know what you think would be a summer you'd like to see sort of recapped. And we'll also open up for each one that we do. We'll open up a place on the discussion board to talk about that
Hmm.
specific summer, and you can leave things that you liked or you didn't like. Uh, Thoughts that you had, and we'll make sure that we mention them on the episode. So we'll be starting that up, and I'll probably put it up, even though we have that episode will probably come a week or two out. We'll
Right.
put it up once we have the first one. So Nathan, if you're game, what do you think about starting with summer of 1989?
Yeah, I'm down with that. I think, you're a couple years older than I am, but I think, that one is a safe one for both of us to reminisce about and really bring up. I know, just off the top of my head, that was probably the first big move that I can remember growing up, where we moved from the city of Manchester to the small little country town of Loudon, that I grew up in, and my mom still lives in that house to this day that we moved to. So, I would definitely be down with summer of '89.
Very cool. Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I feel like there's a decent chance that most people, even if they weren't completely aware in 1989
Right.
or around in 1989, that there's probably enough things there that you be have some sort of connection to or be
Hmm.
aware of, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, Nathan, let's kind of start off a little bit with Memorial Day. How was your Memorial Day weekend?
it was very nice. It was a good time, and actually, the big event for us ended up being uh, Johnny had his birthday over the weekend, and
Hmm.
it's turned out that all the Bartle Balls, Johnny being my son, all the Bartle Balls have had birthdays in this entire quarantine period of time. The very first weekend of the quarantine, when I guess it wasn't the quarantine itself hadn't yet been announced, but it had been decided schools were going to be closed, and
Hmm.
it was that weekend where stuff got real, so to speak.
Yeah.
It was, you and I were, I think, the day before had been meeting, and then the next day it was like everyone suddenly was kind of going on alert. And that was my
Yep.
my daughter's birthday. It was around that St. Patrick's Day. Her
Yeah.
birthday actually falls on St. Patrick's Day. So her birthday, my wife's birthday, and then Johnny's have all fallen within the quarantine, and now they're lifting some restrictions. But yeah, we've all basically had to deal with, okay, how are we going to celebrate these things? And when it comes to my wife and I, we weren't that concerned about it. But with the kids, it's like, how do you make, they haven't been in school, they haven't really get to see their
Right.
friends, and how do you do something with Izzy's? We had a lot of stuff already in place, so some
Hmm.
stuff just got straight canceled, but we were still able to have, a reasonably normal kind of like birthday thing. And it was easier to sort of like adjust and say, okay, by the time we get to Johnny's, so many things have just been kind of like canceled or not happening, that we were trying to find a way, how do we do this and make it something fun and memorable? So Jen had come up with the idea to do kind of a scavenger hunt where
Hmm.
he would go around town and we would social distance, have moments where he could interact with everyone and solve different clues and puzzles. And Nathan, you and Joy were a
Yeah.
part of that, and we got to go over to your house, and you give him a clue, and he would go somewhere, and we would give him a present, and then we get to see everybody. But because of the nature of the scavenger hunt, it was totally fine that he was only seeing people and then talking with them for 5 or 6 minutes,
Yeah.
and it allowed everyone to kind of be a part of his day without it just being like phone calls. In fact, a good friend of mine recorded this message where I mean, it basically came off looking. He looked like he was Dumbledore, with his pipe and his, um, his long hair and his beard and everything, sitting there talking to Johnny from his Fortress of Solitude. It looked like,
Yeah.
and so that was really cool. That started the day off, and then we went from there. And yeah, he had a really fun time, and that was almost like our big. It's so funny because while we've been going out, like I've been going out to pick things up here or there and stuff like that, and we've been going out and doing hikes here or there. We did end up going to a park that day for a picnic on his birthday on Saturday. But honestly, particularly the kids had never done that much traveling for about a
Right.
month or two. That's our normal Saturday routine, was just running from place to place, and we're all like, wow, we're kind of tired. This is the most.
Not used to this.
No, and it's not like we went more than like 30 minutes from the house, but we went, yeah, exactly. And it was like, and I looked at Jen, I was like, remember when this was every weekend? It's like, I think we have to find a happy medium between these two things. So that was probably our big thing. What else? And then Sunday and and Monday were both kind of chill days and hanging
Mhm.
out and having some cookout stuff just with us and stuff like that. So it was fun. We got some watermelon and some corn and everything and
Mhm.
did that. So those are always kind of big summer things for me. And grabbed some beer and everything and got some of the the Narragansett beer,
Yep.
with the choice beer of Quint from
That's
Jaws.
right. That's right. Now, did you get the original stuff or did you get the lemon?
No, the original stuff. I don't know if I had you say lemon?
Yeah, it's like they have a shandy, so a lemon
Oh, is it
shandy out.
good?
It's not bad. I mean, they're all about the same. I mean,
Yeah.
have you had some of the other ones before, like Sam Adams or anything like that?
Yeah. I've never had
Yeah,
the Sam Adams like shandies,
yeah,
but the Narragansett, for a beer that's pretty inexpensive, it's pretty
right.
good actually.
Yeah,
I had never had it in its whatever 70 or 80, 90 years of
right,
existing, whatever. It says something, it's like, since actually it's longer than that. I think it might be, I can't remember what the label says, but it's like, oh, this is pretty old.
right.
um Not the individual can, but so we had a fun
Mm,
time. How about you?
nice. Yeah, no, it was very nice. A lot better than I initially thought it was going to be. Of course, the drive-in theater that we have here, Benji's, they do a dusk till dawn movie night, and Joy and I typically will go to that. They play 5 movies. They start right when the sun goes down and they play all the way until the sun goes up. They begin and end with the Star Spangled Banner. It's really a great experience that they put on. And so Joy and I were lamenting the fact that we weren't going to be able to do that at this point because it had not been open. And so we were, talking about what we were going to do. Well, Joy's grandmother was celebrating her 90th birthday, so we all decided that we were going to show up and just kind of pitch a blanket on the front lawn, and they were going to stay up on their porch, and we were just going to visit with them and celebrate. And we were able to do that. My sister-in-law came up from Bowie, Maryland, with her 2 girls, and we had a great time sitting on the front lawn and just talking with them and enjoying some music. And the 2 little girls put on shows and parties and using their crazy imaginations to keep everyone entertained. And so it was a really good time, particularly in a moment where we're concerned with going up and seeing her grandparents. Her grandfather's 94, her grandmother just turned 90. So you talk about that high risk category, and they're right in there. Um, but we were able to visit and celebrate socially distanced, which was wonderful. And so it was a really nice time on Sunday. And then Monday, my sister-in-law came back up to do a barbecue and cookout. And so we did that, and we invited a couple of the neighbors. And again, the house that we're in, Nathan, we have a nice big backyard, so we're able to kind of spread out and still be the 6 feet away, but enjoy a nice cookout. And so we did that, and then we went for a little hike through the woods and just had a really good time
Who was
visiting.
that with?
That was with my sister-in-law,
Oh,
so
okay,
my
okay.
Joy's brother, Kyle, his wife Ariel. So we were able to just enjoy being with them. And again, it's, you don't realize how much you miss people until they're not there.
No kidding, right? Yeah.
Um,
That was the thing with that scavenger hunt thing. By the time we got to your house, we were already like 20 minutes behind because we realized we haven't seen these people. We can't just,
yeah,
yeah, no one's talking for just 5 minutes and moving on. So we were like, we had to just start cutting some things because we're not visits, but like all the stuff in between because like, okay, we're like almost an hour behind now.
right. Yeah, yeah. So for me, it really did feel like more of a traditional Memorial Day weekend than I thought it would, and so that was a very pleasant surprise. Being able to interact with people, even distance interact with people, was nice, and so it was a good opportunity, and it was a beautiful weekend, absolutely gorgeous weekend.
Yeah, yeah, it was great.
So great time to be outside. So, let me ask you, Nathan, what is it? I don't know if you get into this mindset, but I know for me, this really is the starting point of summer for me. Is this Memorial Day weekend? Do you feel like that too, or do you feel like the summer starts a little later, or what are your thoughts?
It's funny for me because I mean, when I was younger, I think in a sense the summer mostly felt like it. Yeah, I think Memorial Day is probably a good like demarcation point. The summer when I was a kid did tend to start like when school was over, so it was
Hmm.
always probably a little bit later, and it feels like over the years it just got later and later like that. And then when you in the real world and work all the time or are not a teacher,
Right.
then summer doesn't have that demarcation point exactly. For me, I guess probably being the movie guy and doing the critic review stuff for so long, it really began just about the beginning of May because that's when big summer movie season starts, right?
Yeah.
And that is about the time when you start to see some changes in weather. But you have that first big like summer movie that comes out and it's a big deal. And so for me, that was always kind of the start of summer in my mind, mostly because of being so like for a while there, a lot of what I was doing was movie centric. So like everything would change because it wasn't so much small little movie. And now this is of course very different, but all those other things, the changing of the weather, suddenly where some certain kinds of foods and cookouts are coming into
Hmm.
into flavor, and that stuff all probably kicks out like you said around Memorial Day. And then traditionally, I mean, think back over the years, that by Memorial Day was usually when you had your first big summer movie. We've gotten it back and back and back until
Hmm.
now we get the first summer movie like at the end of April. But
Right.
say about that, by Mother's Day is when I'm starting to feel definitely like, hey, we're getting into summer. We're leaving springtime and heading into summer. Even though, you know, actually technically speaking, maybe we're not there yet, but feeling wise, I kind of feel like, hey, I'm already kind of into summer, and now it feels like kids are just they're getting out midway through the summer.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's very true. I remember growing up, you had the Memorial Day sales, and so I can kind of remember in my family, there was Memorial Day wasn't necessarily a time where we would have a lot of extended family coming over and visiting, but it was a time where, as our family unit, we would do things together. And so I can remember getting up early with my dad and my mom, and we would typically go into town and hit up one of the sales, something that was going on, if we needed a new washer or dryer or something, or we just wanted to check out and see who was doing what. There was that Memorial Day sale going on, and so we would spend the morning out in town and just driving about, stop off, maybe do a hike along the river, and then come home. And then the afternoon was, just kind of that chill time. Dad would fire up the grill and we'd have the barbecue, the watermelon, corn on the cob, the, burgers and dogs and all that stuff that just really felt like, okay, we're ushering in this time of, like you said, school probably went for another couple weeks, but this really was that starting point. I remember for a few years we had a pool set up, and so that was the big unveiling of the pool for the summer, and getting
Yeah,
that all
very
on the
true.
right track. So it really, it tended to be that bigger event. I remember just down the road there was a small lake down the road from our house, and so we'd go down there, spend a few hours down there, and you'd see all the boats out on the lake. And so that really seemed to be the time where people were were coming out of the house, and you could visibly see people out of the house. You know, your neighbors, particularly up in New Hampshire, had been shut in for the winter. And now everybody's coming out, and you're having those neighbor chats with each other. And, you know, people just are out and about tending the gardens and doing things. And that really seemed to be that marking point for a lot of people. Now, when were you guys vacation people? Growing up, did you tend to hit your vacations the beginning of the summer, the middle of the summer, or the end of summer?
Well, as when we were kids, and we didn't go on as many vacations when I was growing up. Um, we went on trips, but we basically would get to a point in the summer where my dad would probably take off for like a week, and we did a lot of camping.
Hmm.
And I would say it definitely would, it probably should have happened this way, but I always feel like it fell in like the hottest possible part of the summer. That just is kind of the nature of camping. But it was always kind of towards mid to late July,
Yeah.
because that's typically I think what he would end up taking off, because you get out of school in June, and then by August it's like you're almost getting ready to go back and stuff like that. So typically that like later July would be when it was. That's me growing up. Now we did take a trip. We took a couple of trips, but we didn't ever take any really big trips. We had relatives in North Carolina, so we would go there over the years. Several summers we would go there. I remember actually summer of '89 was a situation where we did, and that was probably our first as kids first big trip where we went anywhere for like a week at a time, and or a week or two, and we went to North Carolina, and then we also went to the Outer Banks like a couple years later. I want to say summer of '91
Mhm.
probably, and we did that again. You're talking in that July June timeframe. Now with the kids, with my kids and Jen and I, we tend to try to aim at that um, August timeframe. When the kids weren't in school, we would push it right to the end of August, sometimes beginning of September.
Mhm.
There's always less. And we've been going a lot to places like the Outer Banks and stuff like that. Jen and I have gone up into like Bar Harbor. We've done some
Mhm.
trips there, and we prefer the end of the summer. There's usually less people around. The weather's a little cooler sometimes, particularly again before we had kids and weren't held by like the school schedule. We would even push it into maybe September and do
Mhm.
little trips throughout the summer. Last summer we did take the kids, and I'm actually glad that Jen sort of kind of pushed us on that one. We went and took the kids to Disney last summer in
Mhm.
July, towards the end of July, beginning of August, and that was a lot of fun. But right, probably in the middle, like you had been out of school for a little bit of time, and it was enough time before we went back to school. It was a nice kind of right in the middle of the summer. I would always say we've probably been within weeks of the Fourth of July.
Yeah. Yeah. We typically, it's funny because we never really did vacations growing up either. We were big campers as well. And, you know, my parents were a little older. There's another set of kids in my household older than me. My younger brother and I were kind of a second generation. I have a brother who's 8 years older than I am, and then another one, and then a sister who's 11 years older than I am. And so by the time my younger brother and I came around, my parents were slightly older, and so they were looking for more comfortable vacations. And so we got big into the pop up camper camping, and so I can remember, you know, one year my dad, you know, went out with my mom, and they bought this large pop-up camper, and so that was what our vacations became. It was more weekend trips, and then, you know, if it was a Fourth of July, you had a longer weekend trip.
Yeah.
um, but typically we would, you know, we would leave the house on a Friday and we would get back later on a Sunday. And then again, if it was a longer weekend, you get back on a Monday or Tuesday. And so that was, you know, that was our vacation, but we would do that pretty consistently every weekend. So I can remember, you know, being at different campgrounds and doing different things. And, you know, this was back in the day where the campgrounds had, you know, the stuff for, you know, the arcades. So, all the teenagers would
Yes,
swarm to
yeah.
the arcades, and you'd spend hours there until the thing closed at 11 or 12. Most of the campgrounds had, the little putt-putt golf place that
Yes,
you could go
yes.
to and do. And I remember a couple of them that we went to had some water slides in a pool, and so I can remember all of those things. And what was neat, what I really remember is they would do these different theme things as well. Um,
The
you know,
campgrounds, you mean?
yeah, they would
Yes,
have these
yes.
weekend themes that they would do, and so they would stay open until the end of October, and they would open up early in May. But I can remember, in the middle of the summertime, they would do these Halloween parties, and so all the people in the campground would get these flags that they could tie up on their campground post, and you could go trick or treating, and you would dress up, and you
Yeah, particularly people had like the campers and stuff that were like
yeah,
year round. Yeah, that I remember that too. It was a lot of fun, and they would do things. Some of the one we There's one that we would go to in Virginia, and it was near one of the caverns. I can't remember now. Maybe Luray.
mhm,
I'm not entirely certain, but it was near one of the like caverns where you go underground. The campground was maybe 5 or 10 minutes from it, and they would have events. They also had their own pool, and they
yeah,
had a big movie screen where they would do like
yes,
evening movie. And they did one night while we were there where it was one of the times we went, and they were showing Jaws
yeah.
from the pool. So that was a pretty cool and kind of unnerving experience because you could sit in your
Right.
floaties out on the pool and watch Jaws. And of course, you always get some jokesters coming up.
Right.
Most of them in my
Underneath and
family.
like
My favorite memory from that campground is kind of a weird story. I don't know if I've told it before, but they would do this particular campground had like you said, there'd be a theme, and there'd
Mhm.
be themes throughout the summer, but there would also be things they did like every week. Like they would
Yeah.
have ice cream Sunday night. I don't know if it
Yes.
was every week, but it would be every couple weeks. It might have been every week. And the week we were there, ice cream Sunday night fell on a Thursday or something. So it was why we were still down there. And everyone in the campground will come out to a couple pavilions they'd have set up, and you'd have free ice cream Sundays. It was awesome. And they'd have all
Yep.
kinds of ice cream. They had people serve. I mean, it was a pretty like uh well put together thing for something that they're doing for free for the campers there.
Yeah.
But the wild thing was that when we were there, they had everyone come out, and a lot of the older people that would be there in their campers would come down and be there. And you clearly, they've been around, right? So everyone kind of
Right.
knew everybody. And my dad and I were sitting there, and the whole family's down there, and we're looking at, and all these people, kids, young people, are all coming up to this one like couple, and they come by and talk, and I'm like, these people can't all know this couple. Like, how
Right.
what's going with this guy? Why are they all coming up with this guy? So my dad's like, no, no, don't you see it? I'm like, no, I don't see. What are you talking about? And it was Ernest Borgnine. Was he no kidding, like it was Ernest Borgnine. He
Oh
was
my
there,
word.
and he this was like 95 or 96. So in Borgnine years, he was still a spring chicken, I
Right.
guess, because he lived, I think, was he in his 90s when he passed?
I think you're
He
right.
was up
Yeah.
there, I think, his late 80s or 90s, I think. But he was there, and I remember it was kind of a weird, intimidating thing because the only thing I knew him from when he mentioned that it was Ernest Borgnine was like Cabby from Escape from New York.
Right. Right.
I could probably think, obviously there's a lot of other things that Ernest Borgnine has done, but in that moment it was like it's Cabby from super nice guy. Seemed very friendly. Really, really was hitting the ice cream sundaes pretty hard. That I do remember. But yeah, he would come up and talk. And he was a very like friendly guy. They were there. I don't know if they were kind of passing it through or they kind of stayed there for a little bit. But
Yeah.
that was one of our few brushes with celebrity. But again, it's trying to convince everyone else of who it is you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, and to me it was a really great it was a really great thing because I'm sure like your family, we weren't I know I was friends with families who every year they were doing Disney and they were doing ski trips to Aspen and they were doing, all these things. I mean, they had, money coming out like crazy. If we were going to do Disney growing up in my house, we would have had to have saved for, 10 years before we could
The
have
same
gone.
here, yeah. When things like that weren't even in, but the campgrounds were a nice
Yeah.
choice because you could go, you get your tent. It's basically a one-time cost for the
Yep.
most part, unless you manage to destroy it like we did a few times. And
Right.
then you go, and it's relatively inexpensive, and you spend a week there. We always had a great time. Like you were implying, we take our bikes and we would just go out
Yeah.
through and if you went often enough, because sometimes if there's a campground up at PA we go to,
Mhm.
and we might go there where it was we weren't traveling as far. We might go there a couple times a summer, so it
Yes.
would be like it'd be the only our only trip, but we would take a couple trips and they might
Yeah.
last for 3 or 4 days
Mhm.
or 4 or 5 days. And it was fun. And I think the concept of taking like a big vacation every year where we went away was not something that happened. Like I
Right.
say, I think in the time of like I consider childhood kind of being from like, when I was young, to having my first memories to like being, coming out of high school,
Mhm.
we took maybe 4 or 5 big trips where we went out of state,
Right.
further than PA.
Right.
That we would go like, to North Carolina or a place like that. And so we do a little bit more of that with our family. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we did a lot of that. Camping's can be a really fun thing. If you don't like it
Yeah.
though, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it takes, a certain it takes a certain type of person to look at that and find some entertainment in that, and to be able to deal with that and do that. Joy and I, we've done less camping. She's actually probably done more camping now that we've been married than she did when growing up, but I'm certainly doing a lot less than when I was growing up. And there's still something about going to certain campgrounds that brings all that back for me. We've been to up in New England. We've been to a couple areas since we've been married. One of them we went to was near Old Orchard Beach, and that was kind of more what I was used to growing up. You'd walk down to the main entry area, and there was the arcade and the store and the pools and the mini golf and this, that, and the other. And so all those things were there, and that was a lot of what we did growing up, because my parents knew that if this is what we were doing for our vacations, then they wanted us to be able to do things. And so those things were available. And of course we would bring our bikes and all of that stuff, and then we've done more of the secluded camping. It's still huge campground at Nickerson State Park up in on Cape Cod, but you don't have the arcade and you don't have all that stuff. But what they do have in the campground is tons of hiking trails all around. And then there are tons of beaches that are all attached to different parts of the campground. This is a huge state park campground that we've gone to before. And each one has its own unique sense of just bringing back that memory for me of this is what I did growing up. This is what I remember. This is what I enjoy. And even to the point of sitting around, the sun's gone down and you're sitting around later in the evening with marshmallows and s'mores, and just enjoying conversation till 11 or 12 in the morning. um, or I should say 11 at night, 12 in the morning. Having those conversations with your friends and family, and stoking the fire once it's dying down, and bringing it back up again, and just all of that stuff just has that wave of memory and idealism. I think I think that's part of what nostalgia is just that memory of a better time. Even though it's not necessarily better, it's just in your mind. This was a moment that you froze in your head as being idyllic, and so that wave
You've
kind of
reached
comes
most of the
back.
bad memories out of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, exactly. You don't remember them until you get back there and you're like, oh, I hate setting up this tent.
The context, yeah. Well, I had that feeling a lot with camping when you're sitting there and you're like, why do we like this again?
Yeah, and I think probably for my parents, that's what it would have been if we had done more tent camping. Joy and I do more tent camping now. But I think growing up, if we were doing that with my parents, I probably wouldn't have liked it. But with them, it was, oh, back up the camper, pop it up. extend it, stabilize it. All right, we're good to go. Let's pull the stove out and hook it up. And
Yeah, not cursing while you try to put metal pipes together, trying to
exactly.
race the sun to be done before. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then the fun of holding a flashlight while your dad
Yeah.
questions his existence, trying to like get the yeah, yeah. Nope.
Yeah. But even those things bring about, certain uh, you know, bad and good. It brings about, certain things that you end up having to chuckle to yourself when it's all done and over with. I
Oh
remember,
yeah, yeah, definitely. And
I think about even the setting up of a Christmas tree. I remember growing up, oh man, we would go out, we would pick that Christmas tree, we would go home, and then the kids would all go upstairs while mom and dad fought that thing into the stand.
yeah, I'll level with you, man, that I was able to let that Christmas tree tradition thing kind of just go.
Yeah.
Um, like every few years we have the grueling task of buying a new fake tree.
Yeah.
So there's there is that. I'm not really all Griswoldy up on that one, but
Right.
so and I'm glad. I am, or and I say glad, but I am hopeful that that we will see some of these things open up, and I am glad that we can still kind of go to parks and things like that, and particularly some
Mhm.
of that's been um, opened up where we are here in Maryland, and I know that some people have opened up other states and counties have opened up to a greater degree than we are. We're
Mhm.
probably, at least in our vicinity, Baltimore's held back a little more than some of the other places in
Right.
Maryland. Um, but I am glad that as we're getting summer, I'm hopeful that we can have some of those experiences. And I hope that things hold. That
Mhm.
this all holds. But I would definitely encourage people that don't follow the rules and follow the social distancing, but don't get caught up in just getting stuck in the house. Even if you could be
Yeah.
creative and finding ways to do things, because yeah, and I think the summer's a lot of fun. There's a lot of opportunities. It is warmer. It does afford us the ability to sit outside and be
Mhm.
outside a little bit more and do some things that would be harder, like aspects of this quarantine are obviously a lot harder in the winter, because it is harder to get people together
Right.
and sit in a big open space and hang out. And so I think that we do have the benefit of that, and that if there's things you enjoy doing this summer, to the extent that it's reasonable and isn't going to potentially, cause issues,
Mhm.
is to be able to do those things. And I'm definitely looking forward to the drive-in movie theater opening
Yes.
up. I didn't realize how excited I would be for that, but and as you mentioned, Nathan, we have one here near us, Benji's, which for me and you is what, about 10 minutes
Oh yeah.
away,
Yeah. It's
something like
beautiful.
that. And yeah, so, and I know there aren't many drive-ins around anymore. It seems like they may be making a comeback,
Mhm.
and I think people are just discovering them. I don't think I mentioned this on These Go to 11, but it's funny because I I was reading an article the other day about like the number one movie in America or something, and it was like, again, there's two movies playing right
Right.
now, and if they're playing at a drive-in, and it was they were like the movie The Wretched, which is a very low-budget indie horror film, is like the number one movie because it's been able to play at drive-ins, and it's on
Yep.
VOD and you can rent it. Jen and I actually rented it a few weeks ago, and it's definitely like a creature in the woods kind of horror movie, and it's
Right.
exactly the kind of thing that probably would not get a theatrical release now, but would have definitely been the thing that would have played at a drive-in back in the
Right.
day.
Back in
So
the day. Yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what Benji's will do. Benji's is nearby, so if you're in Baltimore or live in, particularly in like the White Marsh area or in Baltimore County, it's definitely
Yeah.
worth checking out. And it may be, for a good chunk of the summer, it may be one of the only places where you actually will be able to go
Yeah.
and actually attend and see a movie. And so definitely check it out. I
Mhm.
know that the owner was just recently on one of the radio stations, and he was talking about how it was that they really needed to be able to get back open because they were running up against some financial straits. And I'm sure a lot of theaters are in that
Yeah.
scenario. Something I'll throw out there, because again, kind of from the movie perspective, that if you've got a local place that you do enjoy or regularly patronize, I would say look online and check them out, because a lot of them are participating right now in some of the online streaming
Mhm.
services. So yes, it's not quite the same, but you can go on, and if you are interested in renting a movie that's playing sort of exclusively on streaming, you can rent them a lot of times through a venue that will put the money into the pocket, or some of
Mhm.
that money into the pocket of a theater
Yeah.
chain. Not even a chain, but like a theaters. For instance, the Senator Theater, probably my all-time favorite theater here
Hmm.
in Baltimore, and I've talked about it on the show many times. And Nathan, you and I have
Yeah.
attended several screenings that we've then come back from and talked about on the show. That old school style movie house, I
Hmm.
suspect that if something were to happen and the people who currently own it had to let it go, that the state would pick it back up. But I really want this place to remain being a
Yeah.
movie theater. It's just so good at being a movie theater, and it was doing all kinds of awesome revivals. I saw the Lost Boys there as a revival
Yeah.
just about a few weeks before all of this happened. So places like that, you can go online, and if you've got a local place near you that you feel like, hey, how are they doing? Just like some of these restaurants, I encourage people who,
Mm.
when they can, to patronize their local places. Particularly if it's a place, it's like, man, I really want to see that place succeed.
Yeah.
Find a way to help out. And so, I mean, you can obviously go and contribute to these theaters, and probably even donate money. But there is a way to go and do like actual rent a film
Mhm.
via these some of these interactive streaming things. You can go on there and you can make it. It'll end up benefiting some of those local places. But
Yeah.
yeah, drive-in movie theater. I'm super excited about that. I'm excited about being able to have social distancing style picnics, like you're talking about, cookouts, things like
Yeah.
that. Looks like they're opening up the pools, but I'm guessing that's going to be a very limited sort of
Yeah.
proposition.
Yeah. They're, from what I understood, they're opening them up, but only at 25% capacity. So really, really limited. I mean, if you think about, if a pool can hold 100 people in it and they're only opening up to 25% capacity, that's only 25
Yeah, I'm
people.
not a lot of you people think you go into the pool this weekend. Maybe not
Yeah.
really,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Well, and it's having an impact on summer camps too. Our school does a summer camp.
yeah, the summer camps we had our kids enrolled in are already canceled.
Yeah, we've had to, basically, we're going to do an alternative online, class offering for certain things, which will give, really, the bottom line is just to give parents options for activities for children to do, structured, timed activities for them to do and work on, and that's really what we're doing, because in order for us to refit our program, first of all, we need to hire a lot more people than who we currently have, which we can't do right now because people can't go and get background checked and all of that stuff, because those places are closed right now. And so, it's just, it is interesting what you can't do, but it's also interesting to me what people are doing and the creativity they're coming up with to do different things and still maintain the guidelines and the social distancing and boundaries that are put in place. And so I'm really enjoying hearing about the creativity of what's going on. One thing to say about Benji's, which is great, because you talked about people around the local area, but I even know people who, from Virginia and Pennsylvania, who will come in specifically for a Benji's weekend, and they're willing to drive, on a big opening night, they're willing to drive the hour and a half, or even 2 hours, to get in and see this, this feature and have that experience. And so Benji's is really, a great theater, and it's one that you will want to keep coming back to. They have a great alternative food program where if you don't want to purchase food within their concession stands there, you can pay a flat fee and bring all the food you want in your vehicle. And so usually we do that. I maybe will buy a drink or something when I'm at Benji's, just to, throw a little bit of extra money their way. But I mean, we'll go out to Costco and we'll get like two large pizzas, and we'll just pack coolers full of candy and soda, and we'll roll up into the theater planning to spend all night there with, our stuff. And so,
And I know in the previous iteration, like before this, that I think it was like $10 to come in
yeah.
with a carload. Like, you had to pay like a permit, and I wonder if if they can't sell concessions, because if they can sell them, they're going to have to greatly adjust how they do it. So
Right.
you'd only be able to have a certain number of people in line for concessions at a time.
Right.
So I don't know if that cost could change. But it was $10 extra beyond what, but it wasn't expensive to get into
Mm-mm.
the theater in the first place, and you're
Yeah.
paying a bit less, I would say, than you pay to get into a regular
Oh
movie.
yeah. Yeah,
So,
and you're usually getting anywhere from 2 to 3 movies for the cost it would be to get into one at
oh
a
yeah,
a
and
theater.
then right now, right now, the movie, I'm sure, because there isn't anything really that's out.
Mhm.
Again, unless you show some of these smaller movies, which I think would be kind of cool. I'd be happy to go see a smaller indie movie. Um, on a theater screen like this. There's a movie, I haven't got to see it yet. I'll be reviewing it over at Phantom Galaxy, but it comes on Amazon Prime tomorrow, called The Vast of Night,
Mm.
which is a cool little, like, looks like a cool sci-fi movie set in the 1950s. Has a Stranger Things vibe, but again, the 1950s, everything gets set in the 80s now. So back in the 80s, they were set in the 50s. So this is set in the 50s. Looks a lot of fun, but it had an opening about 2 weeks ago only at drive-in movie theaters. So I think it would be cool to see movies like that there. But
Mhm.
yeah, usually Benji's is playing brand new
Mhm.
movies when there are brand new movies to be had. So
Yep.
it'll be interesting to see what they do. I One of the things that the guy mentions is, hey, the price to show an older movie, like, some, I'll just go and find an older movie. I mean, yeah, for me or you, we can grab an older movie and watch it, because we probably already own it. But to pay to play an older movie,
Right.
isn't the difference isn't much between that and playing a new movie.
Right.
So, but I know that we do have coming up in July. We have Tenet. It's still
Yep.
the Christopher Nolan movie, which even put a new trailer out. Uh, Nolan's pushing pretty hard, I think, to try to get it into theaters on when they scheduled it. He wants to have, I think, the first really big movie back in theaters.
Mhm.
So it'll be interesting. But I look forward to. I hope that, honestly, I'll probably choose to see a movie if there's a choice of seeing a movie in the regular theater, and a lot of this is still going on, or seeing it here at the drive-in. I'm going to probably choose the drive-in.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, it's interesting. Normally, I have my little countdown clock, and I don't have that, so I don't know how long we've been recording.
Oh, I've lost all sense of time. I don't even know what day it is, whether it's morning or evening, to be perfectly honest. I'm
uh,
looking here. It informs me it's 4:50 p.m. So we've going for maybe, I don't know if we've been going for an hour, because we talked a little bit before we
right.
actually started. Let me ask you a couple questions,
Yeah.
Nathan. So, like, for summer, you mentioned arcade games. Any arcade
Mhm.
games that were your, like, all-time favorites to play during the summer?
Yeah, so I remember because the campgrounds were actually really good about getting those arcade games fresh in there and really having a good turnover. I mean, I remember that summer that Mortal Kombat, the original Mortal Kombat released. That I mean,
Summer of '95.
yeah, yeah, summer of '95. That it was just there were probably 30 arcade machines at this one campground that we went to.
Are you talking about the video game Mortal Kombat?
Yeah, the video games. So
Yeah,
it would have been
probably a few. I was
93.
thinking movie, I don't know, because
Yeah.
that's what I think all the time. But
Yeah.
that was probably a few years earlier than, like,
I think it was
94,
93. Was it 94 or
93,
93?
94.
Yeah. But I remember, you had, all these kids and teenagers just glued to this thing, and only two people at a time could get in there. But you had 30 other game machines around, but everybody's clamoring to play Mortal Kombat because that's the latest and greatest that
Yeah,
comes out.
92. 92 was
Um,
when that one came
oh,
out.
okay. So even
Because I
earlier,
remember, like, the closest thing you had to that, well, you had Street Fighter,
you
which
had
was
Street
like,
Fighter.
I think
Yep.
that was 91. Because I remember when we were down, we went to Nags Head in North Carolina. The little market near the place we were staying, the rental property had Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
But before that, that style that Mortal Kombat was done in, where you had I mean, at the time in '92, the almost realistic looking characters.
Right.
That the other game that was like that beforehand, which wasn't really terrific, was Pit Fighter. Do you remember
Yes.
Pit
Pit
Fighter?
Fighter. Yep. Yes, I do.
Because I remember seeing that game. If you look at stills of Pit Fighter looks very much like Mortal Kombat, like,
Right.
in the style, but is not. It's instead of
Yeah.
having all these cool little characters that are different kinds of creatures and ninjas and all these things, you just had two guys in tights
Right.
basically punching each other.
Yes. So yeah, Mortal Kombat was a big one that I remember coming in and really, that was a huge one. Another. there were two that were really great for multiple people playing at a time. One of them was, of course,
Teenage
Teenage
Mutant Ninja
Mutant Ninja
Turtles
Turtles. Yeah, baby.
and
Teenage Mutant
X-Men.
Ninja Turtles. X-Men was another one, but they were kind of in the same vein together. No, another one that was actually fascinating because you could actually save the game on the arcade machine was Gauntlet. Do you remember Gauntlet?
Oh
For
yeah, Gauntlet for sure. I remember Gauntlet, but you could
Yeah,
save it.
yeah. There were, so not when it first came out, but by I would say the mid '90s, they had a feature on there where you could actually throw a code in and save your level where you were at, and you could come back to the arcade machine and pop your coin in and punch your code in to
Which
get
makes
back to
sense
where you
because
were.
Gauntlet had like hundreds of
Yeah,
rooms.
yeah.
Um,
So
Man, I just saw when they have all these sales on PlayStation, I see PlayStation has like a Gauntlet, like they've got like an updated
yeah,
version of Gauntlet, and I'm
I've
like, I'm just
I've
always
got
so.
it.
Oh, really? Is it
Yeah,
good?
it is. It's actually, yeah, I enjoy it. Yep.
Because
Um,
Gauntlet's kind of the precursor to, I guess. I mean, I guess you could trace it back like things like Diablo and stuff like that.
yes.
You know, kind of the Gauntlet was always a really fun one. Do you remember a game called China Warrior?
It sounds familiar.
So you basically had like a Bruce Lee sort of character, and again, kind of a precursor to I feel like maybe to Mortal Kombat, but
Mhm.
the level really would be just you jumping in the air and kicking away spears and like knives and things that would fly at you. But at the end of every level, you would have fight like another combatant. But like I
Yeah.
remember that one pretty well. I definitely remember the X-Men game,
Yep.
pinball
Rampage.
games. What's that?
Oh, pinball games, but Rampage.
Rampage, yeah, because Rampage, yeah, now you're talking like the kind of old school, though, like that late '80s, they were still in the same, like you said, X-Men and Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was like the big, the big games, and then also you would have Aliens was around the same time,
Yes.
the
Yep.
Aliens game, which now the games are so complex, it's like taking me 15 minutes to figure out how to hold the gun. I took the kids to the mini golf place, obviously before all the coronavirus stuff, and we
Mhm.
were just in there playing, and it was like, "How you do this?" I'm like, "I'm trying to figure it out." And they're like, "Quick, before the thing
Right.
ends." Um,
Before
and
I die.
right, and so but yeah, but there's a simple Rampage and what's the one? Centipede was always kind of
Yes,
fun,
Centipede. Do you
and
remember Tron?
Tron. I do remember
The
the
arcade.
Tron video
Yeah.
game or the Tron arcade game,
Yep.
and there was what was the one I was just thinking of? Like you always have those cool driving games, like
Yes.
the um,
There was like Spy Hunter and uh
yes, I definitely remember Spy Hunter.
yeah. My favorite memory of Spy Hunter was, uh, you know, growing up and doing the camping stuff, was allowed to bring friends with us occasionally. Sometimes it was just the family going away, but then there were weekends where my brother could bring his friend or I could bring my friend. Sometimes we could bring both of our friends, and so got to bring a lifelong friend of mine, Jim, and we were hanging out at the arcade. And I remember two things about this trip with him. One was we almost got ticketed for speeding on our pedal bikes in a campground. Um,
That's another one. How do you enforce that?
right. But that was one. But the second was this particular weekend, it was a very rainy Saturday day. And so you're really not doing anything else other than hanging out at the camper or hanging out at the arcade. And so we were hanging out at the arcade, and this one kid had probably blown like $20 or $30 to play Spy Hunter.
Good
And
grief.
he like gets sick and tired of it, couldn't beat the game. And so my buddy Jim comes up, pops a quarter in, beats the first half of the game. He's got to put another quarter in to continue, and then beats the rest of the game on two quarters. This kid was flipping out. Oh, he was so mad. And we're just sitting there dying laughing because he just came in and in two quarters, went through the whole entire game and beat it. Um, so that's my fond memory of Spy Hunter.
That's funny. Hey, you remember Dragon's Lair?
Yes,
The one that Don
yes,
Bluth had animated. So it was
yep,
like, and I actually have that one on. I think I actually saw it on the PS3, like the the home version of Dragon's Lair, but it was
Yeah.
all, it's not really a great game because you're just moving the controller to
Right.
move to the next animated sequence. Um, it's essentially the same thing we do now in making interactive training, but like then
Right.
it was like, okay, hit this sequence starts and that sequence starts, and he would always land, the knight character would always land in these horrible like death situations.
Yes.
But it was the same, because it was Don Bluth. It was that same animation that you would see later in like around the same time in like the Black Cauldron and the Secret
Hmm.
of Nim and American Tail and all that kind of stuff. So that's
Yep.
pretty cool, like memory. I think Dragon's Lair is probably kind of like people may be aware of it if they weren't aware of it when they were around because of it was in Stranger Things, right? I think
Right.
season 2 they were trying to play Dragon's Lair, but
Yep.
um, yeah, a lot of that, a lot of fun stuff. And have you ever seen? If you talked about him flipping out because it beat on like the two coin. Yeah, that was always, you'd always have like the like basically like the mall Indiana Jones or whatever, or Han Solo would be
Yeah.
like hang around, like you felt like that kid just stood around with 2 quarters waiting for someone to walk in so he could just do it. Like it's like, do they hire that kid?
I know,
Or
right?
is he on commission? What is he doing here? But or is this just what he does?
Right. Right.
And but I there's a movie. Have you seen a movie called the King of Kong?
No,
So
I haven't seen
I'd
that one.
recommend this to anyone who wants to like kind of take a nostalgia trip. It's a documentary following these characters, but again, real human beings. It's like
Right.
when you talk about Tiger King being characters, but and they follow these two guys that have been kind of over the years. At the time the documentary is made, which I want to say is like 2008 or 9, that they are battling out sort of to be the high score on Donkey Kong. And
Oh
again, yes,
man.
in 2009. And this guy named Billy Mitchell, who is sort of like this, um, I don't know, he's almost like the demagogue of like this group of, he still has like sycophants who follow him around, concerned about the fact that holds the high score on Donkey Kong. So it's almost like he's got his little court of admirers, and it seems like he's willing to sabotage the other guy to say he has the top score. And the other guy's seems like a very like sincere, nice individual. There's one scene where he's recording this and he's so excited because he realizes in this moment he is about to break the currently recorded score for Donkey Kong, and you hear his kids screaming because he needs his butt wiped. And he's struggling. What do I do? And he's starting to instruct the child on how to wipe the butt at the same time he's playing this game. It's a
Uh,
lot of fun, and it does develop as kind of a drama because you're so kind of you're so intrigued by these, again, quote unquote characters.
characters.
But yeah, it's called The King of Kong, and it is all about sort of like competitive playing of old arcade games that aren't really aren't
Nice.
in vogue anymore. So that's only tangentially tied to what you're talking about, but
Hey,
um,
that's cool, man. Oh my word. Yeah, but I remember, just all those games and going in and it's funny because there are so many that I can go back and appreciate. There's something about an arcade, that I can just appreciate. I mean, I think even now, we've got Dave and Buster's down the road that opened up 2 years ago now, I think it
yeah.
was.
But man,
And
so expensive. Games are so pricey to
yeah,
play now that it's ridiculous. Like I'm going in, and I'm like, it's almost not worth it because you can't really play the game for more than 1 or 2 times.
yeah. Well, it's funny because our good friend Jason Lovelace, and we were able to get some tickets that first summer that it opened, and we got unlimited play for $25. They were running a special Groupon sale at that time, and so he and I went, and we went at like 6 at night, and they're open till 2 in the morning. So we went from 6 at night and we played for about 2 hours, and then we went and got some food, and then we came back and played again for another, 4 or 5 hours. And it was like, it was great because it was just, two grown guys in their 30s
Right. I was saying,
hanging
then you're
out.
that other kind of
Yeah.
arcade lurker where that little kid is like, Mom, is that man is still on this machine?
It's like, shut up, kid. I'm trying to beat
Yes, yes,
it. Watch and learn.
right.
But yeah, no, and I've done that a couple times. You know, I found as an adult I can go in, and if I'm spending the $20, I'm spending a good hour and a half to 2 hours, and for me, all right, that's worth it. And so I've gone there a couple times with some of my adult friends, and haven't really had to worry about me burning through money. But I could totally see bringing a kid, or me going as a kid, like, this isn't enough, you know. And so
Yeah,
uh
we'll do those like when they've got special deals. We'll get the special deals and we go. But I mean, it's like my kids really like. Of course, they like the thing that is never a special deal. You always have to pay like
right.
6 or 7 bucks a pop for it. But it's like the virtual ride that they have
Yes.
there. And I have never ridden this because I'm just too cheap. Like I'll always just be like, "You kids get on."
Right.
And they'll be like, "Your kids aren't tall enough," and I'm like, "Yes, they are. Look." And as I grab them by the head and just lift it up a little more.
That's right.
Um, but, but
Stretch
they
them out.
Right, they really enjoy them. They have like Jurassic Park, and
Yeah.
they look funny because last time my daughter Izzy chose to do the Star Trek one.
Oh
She's
yeah.
like, I was a Klingon. Jumped off the ride. So yeah,
Nice.
but it's just like quite the same. Like when you could take like just a giant like sack of quarters
Yeah.
and you sat it there on the edge of the thing and you were like, okay. And then you could gauge you by look over and the sack of quarters is slowly going down.
Yes. Yeah.
That
We
dictated how long your day was.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. We whenever we go to New York, we go to this place called Barcade, and there are several of them around the New York area now. I believe the original one was in Brooklyn. And so every time I go there, I tell my wife's cousins, because we usually stay with them, I got to go to Barcade at least once. And you know, they have really good craft brews there, moderately priced. I mean, there's, you know, you're not, you know, it's alcohol at a bar, so you know you're going to pay the price for it. But the video games that they have there are all, you know, old school video games. They probably have 30 to 40 video games, possibly
Where is
even
this
more.
located, Nathan?
So the one that I usually go to is in Brooklyn, but they do have a
Okay.
couple on Manhattan. I believe there's actually one in Pennsylvania now as well. um,
It's a cool model, and I think it's again something that you could potentially. I don't know. Arcade games seem like they, I don't know how Corona fit they are, but
right. Yeah, and it's just, I mean, it's great because it's that type of thing where, you know, you've got the old school coin machine. You know, you put your dollar in and it spits out the quarters for you. And you can sit there with your stack of quarters and just play video games. And the games, they're 25 cents. And it's like, man, this is great. This is just like when I grew up and I was in the arcade. And you're getting to know people that you wouldn't normally necessarily hang out with. You know, you're coming up and you got the Ninja Turtle game there, and there's three people, and so you come in as the fourth, you know, as long as you're not jumping in front of one of their friends or something like that. But you're coming in as the fourth and you're playing, and you guys are having a good time together. And you know, I remember just that was part of the appeal of the arcade, was just that social interaction with people. um, you know, it's interesting nowadays because video games are probably well, they're definitely, you can be more social with video games now, and being able to be online with people from all across the world. But again, you know, talking about what Corona has done, there's just something about being in a proximity with someone face to face, and making that connection over something like that, that doesn't happen with a mask on, or, you know, halfway across the world.
right,
um,
challenging someone to a Donkey Kong
yeah.
showdown with your nacho platter in your hand, and you have to balance it on the edge.
That's right. Well, and there is too, there's something about, you know, when I get online and I play Call of Duty, and you've got those 13-year-olds trash talking you and all that stuff, it's like,
What's
dude, you're
happening right
just
now? What are my life choices?
right. Exactly. You know, but like in the arcade, there was that like challenge. It's like, okay, Street Fighter, I'm going to be Guile, who are you going to, you know? And so you had that challenge that
Yeah,
came
like
up,
the
and it
kids come up
was,
and take his jacket off so he can walk up
yeah.
and go. What was that movie from the '80s? Was it the Wizard? Do you remember that
Oh
movie, The Wizard
yes,
with Fred
Fred
Savage?
Savage.
The kid like was a Nintendo savant or something.
The big game was what, Mario 3? That was the big
Right. Well,
like
that's something
challenge
else that
3.
like we don't really have as much now. It's like, a Nintendo game like Mario was like a big thing, right? The
Yeah.
summer it came out, and you're like, all I'm gonna do is sit and play Mario, and your parents are like, no, that's
Yeah,
not a thing
that's
that's
not
going
what
to
you're
happen.
gonna do. And I can remember that translating into the consoles, when they first came out, because I can remember when Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat hit Sega and hit the Super Nintendo, birthday parties, that's what you were doing after school on a
Yeah.
Friday. You went to your friend's house and, you got your pizza and your soda, and then you had all night like gaming challenges with Mortal Kombat and
Well,
Street
it's how you try to
Fighter.
justify it too, right? Because you're like, Dad, I don't need to give me $29 worth of
That's
quarters to play Rampage. We'll just buy it once,
That's right. We
and then I
buy it
won't need to
once
go
and
in
I'm
anymore. But I
set.
probably will still will.
Oh man, too funny. Too funny. But yeah, I mean, and I think those are the things that really appeal about nostalgia as well, is it starts getting you down this road and this path of, oh man, yeah, you start with the arcade and then where it jumped to and the memories that came from it, and then kind of the related memories that come from that as well. And um, just it's all good for me. I love that period and thinking about those things. So
I still think arcades are fun, and my kids still like going to them, and they like they kind of like the modern games and things as well.
mm,
Um, but I think nostalgia is like those tricky things where it's like, how do I like engage with it and share it, particularly with my kids or with whomever,
mm,
and not let it sort of like rule me in a sense, or
right,
rule my decide. So like I think of the guy who's trying to get the high score on Donkey Kong. Like, are you living? It's like, do we chase nostalgia? Obviously, we know why big studios and media and everything else chase nostalgia, because if they know that there's money to be had in it for that
right,
very reason that people like to. But like, and how far is too far? But yeah, summer is definitely, I think, a nostalgia time. The minute I start smelling the cut grass and things like
yeah,
that, which I have an allergy for, because then I have a migraine an hour after. But still, the initial smell of the cut
right,
grass is pretty good. But
yeah,
yeah, this has been fun. I'm looking forward, I think, to talking some more um, stuff like this of the summer, and we'll
yep.
have to do a beers of summer
Oh yeah,
episode. I think beers and food of summer. We did one, I think, last year, or not last year, whatever. We were doing
yeah.
Pop Culture Ninja. See, I'm like becoming like Billy Pilgrim and Slaughterhouse Five. I'm just in and out of time. I'm just wherever. I'm
uh,
here, and I'm in 2016 right now.
here's
But
here's what I want to do with that one, Nathan. What I want to do with that one is I want us to be able to do that one, but I want us to be able to be in the same room together with the beers, with the food, talking about it and drinking at the same time and eating at
why
the
don't we
same
do
time.
it like this? Who's the guy that's online? My kid like watches now, Joey Chestnut, where he eat like 15. It's just, okay. It'll be like the arcade standoff. I'll walk and have someone take my jacket off. Maybe not jacket because it's the summer. Take my
Right.
mask off, and then they come up and just pull it down, and then we can do like 30 hot dogs and 10 trogs or something, right? Like that.
That's
What
right.
could possibly go wrong? Um, no, I like that idea. Maybe we will do it as the outdoor thing. Maybe we could
Yeah,
do it outdoor beer tasting. That sounds like it'll be a lot of fun.
I'd be down
Tastes
with
like
that, man.
Corona.
That's
Yes. This Corona tastes like Corona. But
uh
yeah, a lot of fun. So
nice, nice. All right, man. Well, this has been great. We're gonna go ahead and definitely sign off now. Nathan, until next time, we just rock the Casbah.